In 1979, you come to the College of Charleston to accept a job, fresh off the NCAA game. I think I saw you on the bench with Kresse. St. John's against Duke one moment, and then a day or so later, you're in Charleston taking the College of Charleston job. Do you remember that moment, that news conference?
Yes, very much so. And I remember the St. John's team. I was Lou Kresse's assistant for 14 years, 11 at St. John's and 3 with the New York Nets of the ABA. And Lou was a very lovable character in our game of basketball, so I loved being on the sideline with my mentor. So we get to the NCAA tournament and we beat Rutgers, Temple, and Duke. And we lose by 1 point to the University of Pennsylvania, or we would have been in the Final Four with Magic Johnson and Michigan State and Larry Bird and Indiana State. 2 weeks later, I'm here in Charleston accepting the job as head coach, my first head coaching job at the College of Charleston, to coach the Cougars.
You left such rarefied air. Some of the elite college programs that you were connected to with St. John's, and you would have been in the Final Four, as you mentioned, had not for that 1 point loss. And all of a sudden, you're in Charleston, South Carolina, playing at a little place on George Street. And I remember asking you at that very same news conference if you were ready for the transition and the change and the difference from flying in airplanes to taking a bus up I-26 to some school that you'd probably never heard of at that point. That was some transition.
It was. You know, at St. John's, our home games were at Madison Square Garden. And now our home games here in Charleston are at the Willard Silcox Gymnasium. Seats 1,800 people. There's no air conditioning. We've got an old school bus that we're going to ride up and down an interstate. There are 22 teams, I find out, in District 6, the NAIA, where we played. And it was, some people in New York said, you know, that's suicidal going to that job. You know, stay at St. John's and see what happens after that. But I wanted to be a head coach. I was 36. I had been to Charleston. I loved the South. I loved the hospitality and the charm of this city and the people. And I said, I'm going to make this a go if at all possible. My assistant was Rich Haddad, who had been here with Alan LaForce. He stayed on. It was just the two of us. And we looked to develop a program and to get fans to come. We wanted to be a family atmosphere, Warren. I wanted to have the players, the assistant coaches, reach out to the community, be on campus, meet people, be friendly, and develop relationships, which I thought were, besides winning games, you have to have friends and people in the stands watching your team play and caring for your team.
How did you deal with the small little schools you were playing in places like Due West, South Carolina, and Clinton, South Carolina? These weren't even stops that a lot of South Carolinians make off of I-26, and here you were taking teams in and out of these places for a period of time.
And you know, we'd go up and down the interstate and we'd not stay overnight. Newberry was 2.5 hours, Lander was 3 hours, Presbyterian 3, Spartanburg 3.5, 4. So we'd get a bite to eat on the road. If we won, I'd give them 2 hamburgers, fries, and a large Coke. And we'd be back at like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning after these games. But they were good players. NAIA always had Division I players on some of the teams. And if we were going to excel, I had to recruit some players who could play at the next level, but they loved Charleston for the education, for the beautiful campus, for the city. I recruited the parents. Parents loved Charleston, so if the parents pushed their sons to come, I was kind of in the driver's seat, and they would hopefully come and play for the Cougars and wear our uniforms.
The national championship, 1983, NAIA. 5 games, 5 days. What an experience.
There were 32 teams, so we had to play 5 games in 5 days. There was no rest. I think I was in charge of getting the players 3 square meals, tucking them in at night, washing the uniforms, because we had to get ready. Within 24 hours, we were playing again. It was a wearing experience. And in the semifinals, we meet Chaminade. Chaminade from Hawaii that year had beaten Ralph Sampson and Virginia. They were number 1 in the nation in NCAA Division I basketball. They had defeated Virginia, so they were good. And we get by 66-65. Stephen Yetman, who was the MVP of that national tournament, made some foul shots down the stretch. So we win, and now we go to the 5th game, the championship game. You televised that game, Warren.
Yes.
I'll never forget. We play West Virginia Wesleyan, and we win by 5. And after the game, we do an interview, and we have some fun.
As Joe Lamchick and Lou Carnesecca said, proud peacock today, possibly feather dusted tomorrow. You know I'm a very proud peacock today.
It was a great experience, winning a national championship. I don't care what level, if it's grade school, elementary, high school, college, NAIA, it was big time for the Cougars. And we really enjoyed it. Came back to Charleston, and the fans, about 2,000, were there at the airport. They didn't have to go through securities at that time. It was quite different in '83, and they were there to cheer us on and welcome us home. It was really an experience, a lifetime experience for myself, Sue, and our family.
It was a phenomenal reception that day at the airport. I remember sitting courtside in the Kemper Arena.
It's a dream come true.
Talking with you after that game, and you invoked your dad's presence and memories in terms of how proud he would be as, I believe he said, a shoe salesman, correct?
My father said, you know, John, you know, as long as you like what you're doing, hopefully you can make a couple of bucks, even if you're selling shoes, okay? Stay a good guy, and I'm going to love you with whatever you do. You know, 55 years ago, I was a high school English teacher in New York City. I also coached JV baseball and basketball. So then, 40 years at the college, 23 as the head coach, and you know, to have this interview now and to look back at the memories and my fondness for this particular college. I could have gone. Yeah. I could have gone as head coach to St. John's, to Dayton, to Tennessee, to the University of South Carolina, but I wanted to stay and just do as much as we could to promote this program. We went from the Silcox Gym to the Johnson Center. Now it's the TD Arena, a place I affectionately call our Madison Square Garden. I never got a chance to coach here, but to see the 40 years go by quickly. And then after 23 years as the coach, I had 17 years where I was teaching here at the college. I was organizing the alumni game. I was doing a golf tournament. I was doing some games on TV with you, Warren. You were the play-by-play. I was the hopefully the color analyst, and we had a great time. Those games went by like that, 2 hours, and it was, wow, can't we do a few more you know, minutes? So great experience, great 40 years in Charleston.
Those were great memories. After establishing yourself at the NAIA, the school elects to move a little higher. They want to go to Division I. But where there's this purgatory period that you have to go through where you're in no man's land for a period of time. You're not in a conference yet because they require you to go through a certain period of time where you have to prove yourself or whatever, all the paperwork and the NCAA legalese that comes up. How was that period of time for you? Trying to recruit guys here, trying to maintain a certain level, but getting ready for the next level.
It was difficult, and yet it was rewarding. From 90 to 92, we were not in a conference. We were just playing a Division I schedule. We were not eligible for anything. We just had to play games and just you know, get through it and play as well as we could. So it was a 7-year waiting period before we were eligible for the NCAA's automatic bid. So we go officially at Division I in 92. We joined the Trans-America Athletic Conference. And our 3rd year in 94, we get an at-large bid. We finished 24-3. We beat Alabama, Charlotte, Penn State, and they put us in the NCAA tournament, not with the automatic bid. We won the regular season conference, but we were not eligible to play in our conference tournament. So we had to get in with an at-large bid. So we get in, we're at a restaurant, Arizona's, here at East Bay Street, and our name comes up on the board, Charleston, Wake Forest, in the first round of the NCAA tournament at the Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky. I jumped up on a bar stool at this restaurant, and I start leading cheers. And you're doing a live shot on Channel 5 for the 6 o'clock news.
This is unbelievable, folks. College of Charleston against Wake Forest. Just moments ago, College of Charleston coach just stood up in the air saying, "Do you believe?"
We go to the tournament, and Wake Forest has Tim Duncan, the great NBA player, who's a freshman. And Thad Delaney, our center, who's a freshman, goes head-to-head and plays very well against Tim Duncan. Marion Busby, our point guard, kind of steals the show. We lose by 10. It's a tied game with 3 minutes to go. And I went into a zone. I tried to protect our fouls with Tim Duncan inside. They made 2 or 3 threes. I should have just let the players do the coaching on their own. But we got the NCAA tournament. And then we went 6 years with postseason play. There were 4 NCAAs and 2 NITs from 94 to 99. It was a great period of success in basketball here at the college.
It almost seemed to, even though those long 7 years of wondering when and if, it seemed to say, okay, it's justified now, it's validated. You're showing you can play with these guys and you belong there. I remember sitting courtside in that Wake Forest game. It's tied with 3 minutes left, as you say, and an ACC writer looks at me and he says, do these guys play like this all the time? And I said, yeah, they do. I said, they're doing what they do. And yet you're hanging right there with Childress and Duncan and those guys. But that was just the beginning of other opportunities that came along the way with Maryland and Stanford and Arizona. I mean, you showed your mettle and your ability in ensuing opportunities through the years.
Yeah, we could always play with the big guys. In '97, we won the Trans-American Athletic Conference tournament. We're finally eligible for our own tournament, and we go and play Maryland, and we go to Memphis, Tennessee. We beat them, and then the next round we go against Arizona, and we're up about 9 or 10 with about 8, 9 minutes to go. They press us, it gets close, and we wind up losing. We had the ball down 2, and we had a 2 to tie or a 3 to go ahead. Jamel Preston had a great look, missed a 2-point shot. We lost to Lou Olson in Arizona. They go on to win the national championship. That year we were 29-3. Our only 3 losses were at Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Eddie Sutton was the head coach. We lost to, of course, Arizona, and we lost to Kentucky. We get to the Alaska, the Anchorage, the Great Alaska Shootout. We beat Arizona State, we beat Stanford, and we lost to Rick Pitino's great Kentucky team. So only 3 losses to those great powerhouses. Over the years, we beat teams like North Carolina, twice in Charlotte, which was really big for the program. The first one against North Carolina, they were number 3 in the country. They were undefeated, 9-0. They had Lang and big guys, great players inside. But with Jody Lunkin, Cedric Weber, and Danny Johnson tipped in a shot at the end for us to win by 2 points. So we were able to play with the big boys, lost some close ones, won a couple, and that really put us on the map.
You had friendships and relationships with other very well-known coaches around the country. And at one point, you were the AD as well as the head coach, trying to book games. How tough, with these relationships you had with other coaches, was it to get somebody to schedule you? Because you were the team, nobody really felt like they had anything to gain by playing.
We always had to go on the road or play in tournaments at a neutral site. That was even better for us. It's a little easier when they don't have 15, 20,000 people rooting for the team that you're playing on their home court. So we scheduled that way. We played in Puerto Rico, we played in Alaska, we played in Hawaii, beating TCU, almost beating Georgetown in Hawaii. So that's the way we kind of did it, wanted to get games against great teams. They just would not come to Charleston to play in a small gym. The Silcox was NAIA, the Johnson Center became an NAIA Division I facility. It's kind of a glorified high school gym, though. It was really not where the big teams would come to play you. So we had to go there and do our best, and our guys always rose to the occasion. We always played hard, we always played smart, we always tried to keep it close, so the pressure was on the other team, the home team, when we had the ball or needed a bucket. More pressure on them than I think us.
I want to kind of transition to another topic, because you mentioned opportunities along the way that came your way, whether it was Tennessee or Dayton or St. John's, even your alma mater. You did take a job one time for a short period of time in Charlotte at Davidson. And a week later, you decide what?
Come back to Charleston. I was hoping you would not ask that question, but I'll answer it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Davidson. It was 1982, and they were Division I. We were still NAIA, and it's a great school. They had a great reputation. Lefty Drysdale, when he coached Davidson, took them to a top 10 spot for a couple of years. Mike Malloy, Cook, Kroll, they had some great players at Davidson. So I go there for 6 days, and it's a little stuffy, I have to say. I kind of said, Charleston, wow, I left my heart in Charleston. You know, what am I doing here? You know, I have my players back there who I love dearly. So I called the president, Dr. Ed Collins, 6 days after being at Davidson. Can I come back? He thought about it for a little while. He called me back. He said, sure, okay, hop on a bus or get back to Charleston however you can, and you can still be our coach. So it didn't work. I was embarrassing. I think when you take another job, Warren, I probably should have thought about it a little more. I might have been a little more comfortable with the decision one way or the other. But it was a great move for me. Coming back to Charleston and being the coach here meant everything to me.
But none of those other great things that eventually happened would have happened here if you hadn't come back, because all that other stuff was still in front of you, right?
It was 82.
And you weren't the first coach to ever do that. We've seen 3 or 4 other coaches, even one here one time, who came after you. Greg Marshall decided after a period of introspection, I can't do it.
Yeah, and Bobby Crimmins, who coached there for 6
South
years,
Carolina.
He went from Georgia Tech to South Carolina in a day. He was back to Georgia Tech. Greg Marshall did it from Winthrop to Charleston, back to Winthrop. And then, you know, so 83, we win the NAIA championship. And a couple of things happened, Ward, which I really have to talk about. Number one, our team gets to play in the Hop Hole games. We represent the United States. The winner of the NAIA National Championship goes to Israel to play against other countries. So they give us USA uniforms. So we're not wearing Charleston, we're wearing USA. And we go to play in Jerusalem, we play in Tel Aviv, we play in a kibbutz in Jerusalem. Just to represent the USA was really, really special. And then I was given the Order of the Palmetto, which is a nice honor. I went up to Columbia with our president, Dr. Collins, with Jerry Sanders, our athletic director, and Dick Riley, the governor, gave me the Palmetto Award. And then I get a chance to be the commencement speaker that spring. So many nice things happened because I came back to Charleston, NAIA, then NCAA Division I.
John, what about the player you recruited? How tough was that to get young men to come and play that the other schools didn't want, but you tried to find something in them that would work for you here?
Well, the College of Charleston is a gem of a place to recruit at. You know, you go back to the history. The college was founded in 1770. It was the first municipal college in the United States. You know, opened doors for education that far back. Then the city itself is so historical and beautiful. Our campus, I think it's a magic mixture of the old and the new, a kind of Disney World complex, which I was able to, you know, show parents and their sons, wow, what a great place to live and go to school at. And then as a coach, I thought we could combine the academic, the athletic, the cultural and social components as well as any school in the country. It was all here for student athletes. And then they became our role models, our players. That was really important to me. They worked camps, they taught kids the ABCs of basketball, they signed autographs after games, they went to the MUSC Children's Hospital to see and visit kids who had their problems. In the Special Olympics, we were always involved in the Special Olympics to be involved with special needs kids. So our players were really the people who stood out and to represented us like heroes, warriors, kids related to the energy and enthusiasm of our players as much as anything I've ever seen around here, and that meant a lot to me.
I think one of the endearing aspects of your career here is that you found a way to incorporate your family into the College of Charleston family. Your wife working across campus, your boys, an ever-present place as ball boys on the team when they were of age. You found a way to mesh both.
Yeah, that was important to me. You know, when Sue was VP for enrollment management, I once had a 7-footer who wanted to come here badly. I think it was 2 points shy of the SAT. She turned him down. I didn't speak to Sue for about a week or two. Yeah, to have Sue involved, she was involved in enrollment management, in the foundation, in continuing education, graduate school. She had a lot of different titles, and she is really well loved on this particular campus. And to raise our sons here in Charleston and have them come to the games, be the ball boys, as you said, go to Buist Academy and then Porter-Gaud and then Emory University in Atlanta was really special. When we went on the trip, and it was always bus trips, they would come. If it was a weekend trip, I'd be able to bring them along and they'd be part of it, which I think is important. You sometimes bypass your family as a head coach. You think winning and losing is the most important part of your job. Well, it's not. You got to worry about your family, your religion, your health. A lot of things are involved as a head coach and in any coaching of any type. So they were a big part of it, Warren. And I always tried to, know as many people in town as we could. We knew everybody on a first name basis. It wasn't corporate around here. It was family.
1, 2, 3, go!
Did your style evolve in those 23 years? When you first arrived, there were a lot of folks here who had never seen as fiery and as an involved coach with every possession, it seemed, up the floor. And yet, as soon as that part of you was over, you would be shaking hands after the game, talking to people on a first name basis, and people weren't totally sure who this John Kresse person was. Did your coaching style, first of all, evolve through the years from what you were when you got here to what you were when you retired?
Well, it evolved from my two mentors. Joe Lapchick was an original Celtic. He played in the 1920s and 1930s for the Celtics, and they barnstormed around the country to popularize basketball. He was also the coach of the New York Knicks and St. John's. So I played for Coach Lapchick. And then Lou Carnesecca, very intense individual who lived and died each play like it was the end of the world. So I got that from then. So I came to Charleston. I walked a little faster. I talked a little faster than most people around here. But I was going to give everything I could to each practice and each game. So got it from my mentors and mellowed it a little as we went along with the years, as we went to Division I. But yeah, intensity was kind of the name of the game around here for me as the head coach.
I'm not sure everybody understood that the intensity was just part and part of you, or the 8 cups of coffee that you had on a daily basis, it seemed. That was an ever-present part of you. Did players change at all through your 38 years of coaching, but 23 here? Did you see much change in how they would respond to certain things or directions or coaching?
Yeah, they did over the years, Warren. I was in it for 38, total years, 23 here at the college. And in my years at the college, once we got into the 90s and into 2000, I coached till 2002, there was a right of entitlement. They seemed to have players that they expected things to be done, and they didn't sometimes buy in. So you had to, handle them a little differently. You had to pat them on the back a little more, give them a hug a little more, which is okay. That worked also. But I liked it a little better in the 70s and 80s where they were all out, okay? I'll run through a wall, coach. Just tell me when to start and how to finish it. And it has changed, and it's even changed more now in the 2000s as we move along. So I'm happy I coached when it was more tougher and a little more difficult, but it is what it is.
Yeah. How long did you wrestle with the whole notion of stepping aside?
I got a little burned out. I was 59, and I said to myself, wow, maybe I should do some other things in life. In fact, when we went from NAIA to Division I, Dr. Harry Lightsey was the president. I went to him, I said, Dr. Lightsey, this might not be the easiest path and thing to do. Is there any, can you give me more money? He said, no. Can I get any more security? He says, well, I'll think about it. So he gets me, calls me up and he says, John, you have your master's degree in counselor education. If you go over to the Citadel and take 18 more hours in the world of health and PE, I will give you tenure. So while you're here in coaching, if you want to get out, or if I chase you out, you'll have a job here. So I did all that. For a couple of summers, I went to the Citadel and did these 18 hours just so I would be able to stay around just in case that happened. So just a story about my love for the college and wanted to stick around and have a job for as long as possible.
Your teams did play hard and they did play smart, and so many games were close. And I don't know if I've ever seen a coach better manage the final 2 minutes. There was very little to chance. There's much more freedom maybe in today's game where they kind of let the players go. And your style, though, was that we want to implement what we've practiced, and we've got to play for this situation. We've got an answer for what they do. That seemed to be what most rose to the surface at the end of your games.
Well, we had first half strategy, we had second half strategy, we had special situation plays when we were down 2, down 3, up 1, up 2, what we would do on defense, what we would do on offense. We practiced that religiously so they were ready in games. So at the end of the games, at least the players knew what we had to do. They were the ones who had to do it. And I was lucky enough to have players who could really finish games. Stephen Yetman, Anthony and Stephen Johnson from Stawell High School, Greg Mack from Orangeburg Wilkinson, then Jody Lumpkin, Thad Delaney, Danny Johnson, Stacy Harris, Marion Busby. We had players who I'd call a C play. Give it to them and see what they could do. And it really kind of worked on most occasions.
Was there any moment after you retired that you kind of had the itch to either get back in it, or you were sorry you left when you did, or was there no looking back?
There was no looking back, Warren. I had been on all levels, as a high school coach at St. John's, which was really big-time Division I. In the pros with the New York Nets, I was the assistant coach, director of player personnel, and also chief scout for the Nets for 3 years. That was a great experience. I coached in the NAIA, so I coached on all the different levels, found X amount of success, and then just wanted to kind of, stay at the college, watch the games. And right now, our coach, Earl Grant, the program is in great hands at this particular stage, as Coach Grant has just finished his 5th year as the head coach.
The award you mentioned earlier that includes Joe Lapchick, how significant was that for you, given the fact that he had such an integral part in developing the kind of coach you became?
That award has been given to Dean Smith, Mike Krzyzewski, Pat Summitt, the great coach, the lady who coached Tennessee, the Lady Vols, to many, many national championships. So to go back to New York and to receive the award at a luncheon, and then at Madison Square Garden, the place I love so much, that night I was asked to come on the court at halftime. The Syracuse was playing Iowa, and I was introduced as the winner of the Joe Lapchick Award that night. That was 2014. 2009, the New York City Basketball Hall of Fame, Warren. That was also special. Jabbar was there that night. He's a member, a recipient of the New York City Basketball Hall of Fame. But to be inducted into that Hall of Fame, of course, New York City is a place where basketball is always loved and will always be loved, was big. And in this past year, in November, on the 18th, I was awarded the induction into the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame in Kansas City. And with Sidney Moncrief and Sam Perkins and those people, to be part of that was kind of culmination. There was the NAIA Hall of Fame, there was the South Carolina Hall of Fame, the New York City Hall of Fame, this Hall of Fame, but the big one, the national one was really special for myself, Sue, and the family there in Kansas City.
Does 40 years just seem like the right number to kind of move on?
Yeah, I think so. I'm 76 now, and I've had 55 years of working different jobs and different schools and different teams. So a time to come to more practices, be at every home game in Charleston, audit some classes. Maybe Stu and I will do a little more traveling. So I think it's time to just put it away and just let other people do things and then just admire and look to help out. If I can do anything in the community or raise money for the college, I'll stay involved.
560 wins, 23 years coaching, 40 years here. I think a lot of folks wondered when you first got here, was he just here to get somewhere else? And is this just a stepping stone? It became everything but that. Just congratulations on just a legendary career here. It's been a real pleasure just kind of getting to know you and work with you. You're right about the games we did. It was the fastest 2 hours that either of us ever spent, except for the time we drove to get there and to get back. But it's been a pleasure just to be around you and see what you've done here, and all the best down the road, as they say.
Thank you, Warren. I've enjoyed our interviews before games, after the games we did on TV, and hopefully other people will look at it and say, wow, Kresse and those Cougars were pretty special in those days, and hopefully will be remembered in a very positive way. Love the college. Go Cougars.
We would not have done this without you. You are